That is in. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back. Glad you could be here for the Midday Connect. It's April 22nd, 2025, and we are delighted to have Art Chou with us to go through his learnings from a career in sports and startups and investing. So, without further ado, Art, I will turn it over to you. You're muted there, Art.
There we go. You guys seeing my screen now here?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, so I'll zip through this, try to keep it into that 15-minute range and try to hopefully have more questions more than anything. So my name's Art Chou again. I'm managing partner of Stadia Ventures. I'm going to walk you through some of my path in the sports world that I've taken and some of the lessons I've learned at each stop. Okay, how do I? It's not, hold on. Let me up. There we go. Hold on. Here we go. Let's go play from start. There we go. Everybody seeing that now?
Yep.
Okay, so here's some of the starts I've had along the way. I got my start as an engineer. I'm a mechanical engineer by degree, and I started off in the golf industry, the upper left with Titleist, and you kind of go around the horn. You see some of the different stops I've made along the way, and I'll kind of walk you through each one at a time with some of the lessons that I've learned about each one. So I started off at Titleist, young engineer, late 80s. That's going to date me. Late 80s, I started in golf club development, basically designing clubs and putters and what. And there are a few things. Late 80s, early 90s in the golf industry, unbelievable boom time. For a young person in their career, it was. I tell people now that everybody should have that luxury, that joy of working in an industry that just can do no wrong. I mean, just everybody, the money going into it, and it was kind of silly, to be honest. And the golf industry just booming, and so it was this fantastic boom, and was working with a company that was really what kind of the industry leader. So I learned a lot of lessons there as a young professional. Really learned how to be a professional there, designing equipment. I got to go out on tour and talk to professionals about their equipment, design equipment for them. I happened to leave right when Titleist signed Tiger. So that was always the question: is were you there in Tiger? I was there when we signed Tiger out of Stanford. We overlapped about 6 months. I got to watch him hit on a range session early on, but that was right. That was right when he was turning pro, which was cool. But okay, so learning. So it's okay. So what did you learn? Uh, as a young person, you don't know what you don't know, and I learned this through my how I got the job. I found out that they were hiring for golf club engineer, and I didn't want to just send a resume in. So I was working at my dad's engineering company actually, and one of our sales guys was a golfer, a NCAA former golfer, college golfer. So I call him up, say, hey, who do you know at Titleist? I want to call somebody. And he goes, I don't know, but my buddy knows. I'll let you know. My buddy's still on the tour. He's a Titleist guy. So he calls back, says, the guy you need to talk to is a guy named Wally Uline. So I like that, Wally Uline. And there's no internet at the time, right? No internet. So I dial up 1-800 Titleist, boom, boom, boom. Titleist works like, hey, may I speak to Wally Uline, please? Hold on. Please. No. Hello, Wally Uline's office. And it's like, yeah, may I speak to Wally, please? No, he's not here right now. May I ask who's calling? It's like, well, he doesn't know me, but I'm interested in this job, but this engineering job. Oh, Wally's not involved in that interview. Can you hold? I'll switch you over to R&D. I actually get switched over to R&D. Somebody picks up the phone, and I end up having a conversation with them. It's just crazy, cold call. I end up getting the interview. Big desk, vice president of R&D comes through and says, pulls up my resume, says, so you were mechanical engineering at Penn, huh? I said, yes, sir. He says, me too. He says, so was I. And we end up typing, it was just like the clouds parted. And it was one of these things that you look back in your career and it was so random. And I get there, I start the job, and I find out that Wally Uline is the president and CEO of Titleist FootJoy Worldwide. He is the he is the lead. I basically cold called as a 25-year-old, 26-year-old kid. I cold called the CEO and actually got through, which is just you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes naivety and kind of wonder is not bad. The other is I learned Wally Uline was this tremendously strong personality, and the culture at Titleist was so strong. Strong culture is a result of strong leader, and that could work good or bad for you. But everything, so many things within the conversations of the hallways. Well, Wally doesn't is not going to like that. Well, Wally's going to be, and so it really permeated down on through that. I'll never forget. I had a lot of coaches in my life at time being an athlete, but Wally was a really strong leader. So another stop I had along the way was Pixel Golf. So I'm doing some consulting in the golf industry, again doing club design, and I end up joining these guys in Palo Alto that have a technology that they want to bring into the golf industry. And so we decided to start a golf equipment startup from scratch. We had a technology, we had some patents around the technology, and we created a company, complete startup, self-funded. They had a small group of local investors that was self-funded. We did it for 5 years, never cash flow positive, never had more than I want to say 6 months of cash in the bank in terms of runway. And I tell people I got my MBA from the University of Pixel Golf. It was really difficult learnings there, and this was 99 to 2004 or so, right when the dot com boom was coming. So as my first real experience at a pure startup, and I learned a bunch of things. So the founders were a bunch of Stanford and Harvard MBAs that had started this technology company to spin off companies, kind of a very small boutique, and they taught me a lot. One of the things I always remember was payroll is the most important part of your overhead, and manage your payroll very closely. Hire new people as a last resort. It says make sure that everybody is at least 150% loaded before you add somebody on, because number one, payroll is going to be your largest expense, and number two, people spend money. Is that once they come on board, they have to do stuff, and they're going to do stuff, and they're going to spend money. So if you're watching your wallet, do not hire people unless you absolutely need it. The other thing that they taught me, a very difficult lesson, was managing startup investment like a hand of poker. We often dealt with this quite a bit in terms of, well, we're not sure about this, about where we're going. Let's just get 3 months worth of cash and get another card. Let's see another card and see if we can see how our hand is looking. And if the hand is not looking good, we're going to close it down. But we never had enough to play the whole hand. We only had enough cash to see one card at a time in terms of finding a new supplier, or finding a new customer, building a new product, increasing revenues to hit that quarterly number. Those were the cards that we would see. And at any given point in time, we were at risk of, okay, you know what? Let's fold up. The other was retail distribution. To me, had more barriers than D2C. Again, this was before the internet. This is right when the dot-com boom was just starting. So we weren't really selling that much online. We had a lot of trouble as a new company getting retailers to try us because their shelf space was much more valuable than we could offer. And but when we would go to talk to individual consumers, they were more willing to try us out as a new brand than retail customers. So I was completely flipped around from my expectations. I thought we'd have trouble convincing consumers and have no problem convincing retailers, and it was 180 degrees the opposite. So we closed that down, cracked and burned, closed the company, and I ended up joining Rawlings, which is why I'm here in St. Louis 20 years ago. And I started off in R&D again to bring technology there, but then I morphed through and ran all the business units. So that's kind of where I learned the business side of sports. And if you can see all the categories there at the top of the website, so each one of those is a business unit. They have a business unit leader, analyst, and they all reported up to me. I reported up to the CEO. So I really learned how to run businesses as combining business units. it's a $350 million company at the time. We were struggling to get 4% EBIT. I mean, it was a very, very low profit business. And I learned also very interesting lessons from Rawlings. Strong brand identity, double-edged sword. If you look at that logo in the upper right, you notice a few things. It's a woven patch. Our business was a lot of cut and sew, a lot of old tech, not new tech. Very difficult to convince people that we were a new tech company. And then as part of the logo, established 1887. I mean, geez, that's a, yes, we've been around a long time, but that's basically, I felt it was like an anchor that was kind of holding us back, and that this is the way we've always done things. And that's the way that company ran itself, is like, this is the way it's always. So I always thought that brand identity and that logo was a double-edged sword. The other I learned, this was more of a management. So I was part of a senior management team. There were 8 of us, directly reporting up to the president and CEO. And then we ran, there was probably 1,000 different employees that we ran down from there. Strategy, cohesiveness only decrease the further you get from the top. And I learned that because we had trouble within our group, even within our senior management team, we had trouble getting on the same page. And it was just guaranteed that if we were not on the same page, each of our departments, as you went down, it only got worse. That was a great lesson I learned the hard way, that you really need to have your leaders completely buttoned up, and because it's only going to dilute as you get further from the top. That was so I went from there and started up 2 entities, actually, Rapsodo and Stadia Ventures, and I'll talk a little bit about both of them. Rapsodo was a technology company, a Turkish engineer living in Singapore. He's selling launch monitors to an OEM here, OEMing them to a third party here in the U.S. who is then marketing them. And he calls me up and says, "Yeah, I want to start our own brand, and I want to do it in golf and in baseball. Can you help me?" So we created golf launch monitors that you see here, and then we also launched a baseball business. So it's a kind of a combination of a hardware software. The hardware you see up top, these are camera and radar units that are measuring the ball as they're hit or as they're thrown. Spin rates on curve balls, vertical break, horizontal break, and then it goes up to an iPad and you get all your data, and then we sell you a subscription, right? It's a hardware and a software model. So you have an annual subscription in order to look at your data. And this shows you some of the successes we've had. It took us about 2 years after launching it to have all 30 MLB teams. It was just showing that the market was really needing that product. We did not have any outbound sales at that time. We went 3 years with no outbound sales. It was all inbound. It just happened to catch the market at the right time when they really are needing that technology. And continues to grow to this day. But some very interesting lessons I learned there, because it was essentially a startup, but it was kind of self-funded because the founder had this original business selling the golf launch monitors, OEMing them, that essentially funded the business. So it was a startup that did not require startup funding. And we created that whole office here in St. Louis. So number one, and I think Spencer and Leonard, you're used to hearing me say this to all the the different when we talk about product and market. Understand your customer's use case for your product. It was so critical that when we developed the technology, we built it around a use case that we had researched, and then we introduced the product, and we had all of this data on this interface that we thought was really important. And it took going and selling a few, and then listening to our customers, that we realized that I would say 75% of the data that we were showing them, they were not using. And they had a specific use case that they were using it for, and they just wanted us to do that really well, and everything else was almost extraneous. And we were spending a lot of engineering time developing these other capabilities that were really initially extraneous. So that was a great lesson of do not assume your customer's use case. I always say you cannot spend too much time watching your customers use your product or service. You cannot spend too much time. It's always learn lessons from them. So we had a golf business, which was B2C primarily, selling directly to golfers. We had a baseball, softball business that was essentially B2B, selling to teams, leagues, academies, and essentially learned that they're essentially mutually exclusive and almost that there's very, very little overlap in terms of how you operate the two, from the whole customer process to the sales funnel, all of that, and the skill sets when you bring people on board, the skill sets are somewhat, I mean, they overlap some, but they're also somewhat mutually exclusive. That we had people that were very good B2B, we had people that were very good B2C, and kind of keep them separate. And then this, for me on a personal level, consider exit scenarios at the beginning of the partnership. I joined the founder when it was all kind of, this is kind of pie in the sky, and I took some ownership of it, but we never really talked about what was the exit. We both agreed that we wanted to exit. We were doing it to sell it. It was not a lifestyle company. We were doing it to sell it. We didn't completely discuss, well, what are some of the milestones along the way. And we got about 6 years into it, 5, 6 years into it, and I was ready to go. I thought we had built a company that was adequate enough to then sell it, and I was right off and to do something else. And it turns out that our founder was not. He had grown it. We were very successful, and he says, "I think we could do more," and he was not ready to exit. And luckily, we had a mutual friend that was acting as a consultant to us that read, we were butting heads over this. And he read this right. And he basically helped us broker an arrangement that we were all happy with, that where I basically phased out, but still received, some of my equity, liquidated some of my equity. So it was, if I had to do it all over again, I would have had more of that conversation, more of a heart-to-heart with the original founder up front in terms of what is the exit, so that we were at least communicating on it. Okay, last not least is at the same time as starting Rapsodo, we started Stadia Ventures. So Stadia Ventures was founded with the idea of creating a hub around 3 groups of people: entrepreneurs that were interested in getting into the sports tech space but didn't know who to talk to, industry executives like I was at the time, that want to see what's out there, but don't have the time to go and vet all the different ideas, and then investors that are looking for sports tech opportunities. My deal with Pixel Golf, our Pixel Golf investors at the time, way back then, we were absolutely the smallest piece of their portfolio, but they gave us a ton of time because they love golf. So sports was just drawing people in, and you could really you could get a lot of knowledge from people because it was sports. So we created this hub around this idea between these 3 groups, and we ended up starting an accelerator, sports tech accelerator, that we ran from 2015 to 2023. Give you an idea of some of the numbers. 16 cohorts. Each cohort had about 5 companies, give or take. Typically, we had a small fund that would invest anywhere from 50 to 100K in each of these companies. In addition to that cash for equity, we have programming with our executives. You see all the numbers of sports industry executives that we had as part of our mentor and advisory group, that in order to create this programming for companies, we would ask for an additional, generally 3x of our investment in warrants back for this programming. So our investors, as part of the fund, their money went not only one to one as an investment early on with these seed companies, but it was essentially multiplied times 3 or 4. They got a 3 or 4x multiplier immediately on their money just because of the extra warrants that we would have as part of the program. So we did this from 2015 to 2023, and again, it was investment, it was network, and it was a lot of corporate sponsorship and corporate involvement that were where we acted almost like an external innovation department for companies that were interested in the space. So what did we learn here? Uh, Sense of urgency. Uh, if cash is so important. Hurry up and fail, and if you're going to fail, fail quickly and get out. I view that not only from the lessons we taught our companies, but also from Stadia Ventures. Stadia Ventures was a startup. We were a startup. We actually did not have the right sense of urgency to establish our successful business model. Our model was either you have a fund that's sizable enough to have a management fee where you can support the activities, or you have corporate clients that you're willing to pay sponsorship, or you have a membership fee. You have people that are interested in this business where they're going to pay to join. And if you ask me, we screwed around too long to figure out which one of those was right, and ended up having investors have to support us longer than we would have liked. We also had 3 or 4 of us there that were all flat organizations. It was a very small organization, and in hindsight, it seems very stupid now, but we did not have a good decision-making structure hierarchy. We would just all get together and kick it around and say, okay, let's do this. And then as time went on and people's opinions started to break apart, we did not have a hierarchy or decision-making structure that could help solve that, and that cost us some time as well. From the facing of the startups, I see it that most startups, without a doubt, when people ask, so what is the thing that's common with all the startups that you deal with? I would say 100% of them need help in scaling their sales and distribution. You typically have a CEO or a founder that knows the product, service, knows how to sell 5 or 6 of them, knows how to get somebody on the phone and be able to sell it. But how can they scale their business properly? Most of them really do not have that experience in the sales or distribution scaling. And then lastly, I think this will not come as a surprise to anybody that's involved in the startup world, but fundraising is a major distraction. And that I would say 100% of the entrepreneurs that we talk with, if you ask them what's the biggest surprise in your journey, it's the fundraising struggle. I had no idea I would spend this much time on this. And that we also found out that fundraising skill is very different than operational skill. And sometimes it's 2 different skill sets, and not necessarily can you find that in the same person. So fundraising is one of those necessary evils that I think you have to figure out. Okay, so I know I'm going through it quickly, but I'll kind of wrap it up. My universal truisms before we up to the questions, or Chouisms. That is the way. And these are mine. These are just mine riffing a little bit. If it has to do with people, trust is the most important factor. It's not what you know. It's not your degree. It's not, do I have this experience knowing exactly how to sell to this customer to this? If you ask me, it is most of what we do is not rocket science. You need to have a certain minimum level of intellectual ability. But once you have that minimum, to me, it's 100% about trust, interpersonal trust. 2, startups are like a band. I think startups are very much like a band where you do not necessarily all need to be the best at what you do. You need to be the best at how you play together. Not every band has the best guitarist, the best drummer, the best it's how do you get along as a group is the most critical. And then the other part is just like a band, a startup is one argument away from breaking up at any given point in time. And so you really, really have to get along and like each other. Starting a company, not the same as growing a company. I learned this through Rapsodo. I loved starting that company. We took the revenue from domestic revenue 0 to 25 million. It was a blast, a lot of fun. Founder wants to say, no, I think we can go to 100. Let's take it from 25 to 100. Very, very different. Operational excellence, efficiencies, all of that comes into play. Kind of the reason I got out of the corporate life was because I was not good at that, and I did not like that. So starting, growing, yes, sometimes you can find founders and CEOs that can do both, but I think it's really you need to be honest with yourself as to what you do better, and which do you prefer. The old Peter Drucker, I learned this. Kevin Plank, from the founder at Under Armour, had this on his whiteboard. Said the one thing that does not want to erase. Do not erase this on his whiteboard. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. I'm a big believer in people over system. It's get me the right people, and then we can figure out how to work together first, as opposed to here's a system and I got to plug somebody in that does this. The other is that company culture. Everyone has, well, here's our culture, here's our statements here, everything. To me, company culture, you can really see it by how president leadership team treats everybody else in the building. You will learn a lot about the values, and especially in tough times. What happens at tough times? What do you do with bonuses? What do you do with layoffs? How do you treat people? I think that really defines a lot of your culture. And then finally, opportunity favors the open-minded. Um, Stadia Ventures and Rapsodo are the two ventures I'm involved with right now, and probably the two of the most successful projects I've been involved with. Both were result cold calls on LinkedIn. I actually responded to somebody saying, "Hey, I see you're interested in this. Can I talk to you about this?" And first, at the right point in time, I said yes, and we have a conversation. And as a result, we started both of those companies, and both of them have been successful completely as a result of responding, being open-minded enough to have a coffee or have a discussion with somebody, as a result of a LinkedIn cold call. So you never know. You never know. You just got to. Yeah, I think it's sometimes you have to be open-minded and a little naive in order to see new opportunities. And that is all I got. Stop share. How do I do time-wise? Is that all right?
It was great. Thanks, Art. Thank you very much. A couple of questions came in. So let's go up here. Maxwell, I think that was the first one. How has NIL affected Stadia? Are you
Uh,
working with investors that
yes.
are former athletes?
Yes, huge unknown. NIL certainly is opened up a lot of business opportunities. I just came back from a conference in Frisco. A lot of the new startups are around how to manage NIL. So I wouldn't say, athlete involvement. I think on the investor side has not changed that much. I think it's still very, very high, especially as salaries in contracts in the pro leagues get more and more. But business opportunities absolutely have increased with NIL, but there's also a huge unknown. In general, the investors that are more institutional type investors are unsure of how NIL is going to work out. So it's a lot of startup and seed money, but you don't see a lot of the big dollars yet, because we don't know how it's going to flesh out.
Um, Taylor asked, if you were to start a company in the sports tech space today, what customer segment or profile would you target first?
Well, it's a little bit of doing what you know, right? So I know the amateur space very well, having gone through Rapsodo. It's fresh in my mind. Developing MLB teams at the top level, establishing a technology, and then building a business around taking that technology down market to the amateur space that aspire to this. So creating the credibility up here and going downstream. And I'm actually involved in one or two startup concepts right now that are doing that, around different segments in the amateur space. I'm also very partial on the B2B side in the amateur space that is more academy or club based, because that is where the dollars are right now. They're not at the high schools. Colleges certainly have the budgets, but there's not that many colleges either. Pros colleges. It's really at this amateur space at the bottom of the pyramid, which, whether you agree with it or not, has become largely academy and club team based. So that's the way I would go at it.
Awesome. I had a question when you were on Rapsodo and the customer use case, and you talked about listening to customers. What were you doing, or what was the Rapsodo team doing to listen to customers? Was it face to face? Was it surveys? Was it how were you gathering insights directly?
Uh, to me, the most valuable to me was really face to face. Was early on. we had a few users, a few power users that we really, really trusted, and we would almost use them as advisors. And I remember on pitching wise, we were looking at pitching, and I went down and spent a day with the pitching coach at Vanderbilt. We drove down. He had some questions, and Vanderbilt was at the time, it still is one of the top baseball teams in the country. And I just watched him take players through it, and then talked him through. Hey, why are you using this? Why are you using that? Basically, looked over his shoulder. So it was face to face that I learned it. That I learned the most. But it helped to have somebody that was very insightful. It was the right person's shoulder to look over.
What conferences or events do you attend to kind of keep your thumb on the pulse here?
I go to the individual sports trade shows. So that each sport has a coaches show. So AB baseball coaches has a show. The golf has the big merchandise show. I go to the football coaches have a show. I've been to the volleyball coaches show. Softball coaches have a show. Those are the one time you get to see a lot of new technology, but it's also the one time the customers, if the coaches really are our customers on that B2B business, when they're all together.
Art,
And
have you
so,
gone to sports business journal conferences? That's where I used to go to when I was in sports marketing.
yeah, that's SBJ conferences are a little bit higher, in terms of I'm going after that amateur market.
Yeah.
So SBJ is more, yes, if you're interested in how to market to the NHL or the NBA in terms of a broadcast, broadcast technology, broadcast deal, those are good. For startups, SBJ conferences are expensive.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge that you have there.
Got time for a question or two more. Maxwell, do you just want to come off mute and ask your question?
Certainly. Art, you have an interesting perspective on technology in sports. Sometimes too much technology isn't a good thing. And I'm curious in general how you feel about like seeing technology and its impact on sports over the past couple decades. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Or sports better? I mean, obviously the athletes are better due to this with technology, but curious your thoughts on it.
And the overall kind of the 30,000 foot view level, I'm a big believer in that knowledge is good, right? And in general, more knowledge is better than less knowledge. The problem with data in sports is there's a lot of data for data's sake. So I think if you look at the golf industry, probably at the lead, and then baseball maybe at the next down, and then you get down to the other major sports. NBA, NFL is not as big, data wise, but it kind of goes down from there. That there's this wave of let's get all this data acquisition, all these new data acquisition companies pop up, and then you really filter through and say, okay, well, which data is really getting used to help players get better. And as long as you can get to that, I'm a huge believer in that. That's all positive, and it's positive business wise, it's positive performance wise. But you have to get through from the what data is important versus what data is extraneous. But I'm as a tech person, I'm a big believer in that. I want to be part of that filtering. So just give me more. Give me as much as you can, and we'll figure out what is going to help.
Thanks, Art. This is great. Thanks everyone for coming in. We'll
Thanks,
see
Art.
you.
Great presentation.
Yep, it was
Thanks,
great.
guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Nice hearing your truisms.